Sound of a kettle whistling followed by a gentle sigh. Right, settle down, here we go again. Another one of those days, you know the sort. The ones where you think, could it get any dafter? And the universe just smirks and says, hold my pint. This particular tale centres on a chap named Tim Wifebeater. Bit of an unfortunate name that, not his fault of course. Ancestors were probably just really, really bad at baking. And his mate Chimpy, a chimpanzee, doesn't get much simpler than that. Chimpy's main ambition in life is to watch a programme about ham. That's it. So let's see how that all pans out for them, shall we? Spoiler, not well. It was a Tuesday, or was it a Wednesday, doesn't matter. They all blur into one miserable smudge of existence when you work where Tim does. He trudged into the headquarters of the Just Foundation, an imposing edifice of glass and steel, its logo glinting in the morning gloom. A place with a name far grander and far more secretive than its reality would ever let on. The air inside was thick with the scent of stale coffee and something less tangible, the faint electric whiff of secrets and quiet desperation. Before he could even set his briefcase down, his boss, a man whose face was perpetually pinched as if he'd just sniffed sour milk, started laying into him. Wifebeater, you're late, again! What is it this time? Did you get lost on your way out of bed? Honestly, the sheer incompetence is staggering. You're a waste of space. Classic management technique, that. Build 'em up by knocking 'em down. Tim just stood there, taking it. It was easier than arguing. He'd learned that much. He just nodded, mumbled a "sorry, sir," and tried to become one with the beige wallpaper. But the boss wasn't finished. He was just getting warmed up, his voice rising to a shrill crescendo. I ought to sack you right now. I ought to turn you into a paperclip, a useless bent paperclip. It was all a bit much, even for a Monday. Or a Tuesday. Whatever day it was. Tim noticed something odd, though. His boss seemed to be glistening. Under the fluorescent lights, his skin had a peculiar, greasy sheen. And was he getting redder? Suddenly, the tirade stopped. The boss began to swell, his cheap suit groaning at the seams, his head elongated, his skin turned a worrying shade of crimson, and a squirt of mustard inexplicably shot out of his ear. He wasn't a man at all, he was a hotdog demon, a 6-foot-tall, snarling frankfurter in a suit, hell-bent on ruining Tim's morning. I am Hotdor, devourer of spreadsheets, it bellowed. Tim, without missing a beat, grabbed the ceremonial bottle of ketchup kept on the receptionist's desk for emergencies only and doused the demon. It shrieked, sizzled, and melted into a puddle of lukewarm mystery meat. Tim sighed. Just another day at the office. Now, let's rewind a bit. To earlier that very morning, in a slightly less demonic but no less chaotic setting. Chimpy the chimp was having a lovely time. He was parked in front of his laptop, utterly engrossed in a bizarre YouTube adventure, bin surgery and the ham flea menace. On screen, a man in a lab coat, bin surgery himself, brandished a giant magnifying glass, chasing after a swarm of tiny, cartoonish ham fleas. Chimpy was captivated, eyes wide as bin surgery leapt over a mountain of banana-flavoured ham, the fleas scattering in terror. The hero finally cornered the last ham flea atop a wobbly pile of banana ham, declaring, "No flea stands between me and my fruity feast." Just as bin surgery prepared to take a triumphant bite, a comment popped up on the screen. "Lol, what a goofy chimp," it read. Chimpy frowned. He wasn't goofy. He was a connoisseur of cured meats. The comment was hurtful, frankly, and it was ruining the ham-based ambience. His concentration, already fragile from the insult, was shattered completely by the sound of his front door splintering. A man dressed in tactical gear, looking very serious and out of place, burst into the living room. "Nobody move!" the terrorist yelled, brandishing a water pistol that looked suspiciously realistic. Chimpy stared at him, then back at the laptop screen where the ham video was now paused. This was a disaster. He was going to miss the big reveal of the #1 ham. The injustice of it all was overwhelming. This intruder had no appreciation for the culinary arts. That much was clear. What a Philistine. Meanwhile, back at the Just Foundation, the real story was unfolding. It turned out Tim's actual boss hadn't turned into a processed meat demon. He'd just been kidnapped and tied up in the stationery cupboard by the fiend Hotdor Jr., son of the original Hotdor. Tim, having heroically defeated the sausage-shaped usurper with condiments, was hailed as a hero. His rescued boss, eternally grateful, clapped him on the shoulder. "Tim, my boy, you've saved me. You've saved the Foundation. As a reward, here are the keys to the entire Just account. Use them wisely." Tim, bewildered, pocketed the keys. All he did was squirt some ketchup. As the day wound down, Tim clocked out. He glanced at his timesheet. 9 hours and 11 minutes. An oddly specific duration. He thought nothing of it until a series of alarms, sirens, and flashing red lights were triggered throughout the building. A robotic voice echoed through the halls. 9/11. Protocol activated. I repeat, 9/11 protocol activated. Tim froze. What in God's name is the 9/11 protocol, he muttered to himself. He had a sinking feeling it wasn't a company-wide initiative to remember to file your TPS reports. This day was just getting stranger and stranger. He really should have called in sick. The activation of the protocol sent a silent, hypnotic signal across the city, homing in on one very specific ham-loving primate. Back in his now intruder-free home, Chimpy was trying to get back to his video, but his mind felt fuzzy. Suddenly, another chimp appeared at his window. This one was different. He wore a turban, had a long, flowing beard, and carried an air of sinister purpose. "I am Osamonk bin Chimpton," he whispered, his eyes swirling with hypnotic patterns. "You are feeling very sleepy. You will forget all about the ham. You have a new purpose, a mission of great importance." Chimpy's eyes glazed over. The allure of the number one ham faded, replaced by the droning voice of Osamonk. He was being brainwashed. All thoughts of succulent pork were being replaced with complex flight coordinates and a deep-seated, inexplicable urge to do something very, very naughty. He stood up, his knuckles dragging slightly more than usual, and followed Osamonk out of the door. He was no longer Chimpy, ham enthusiast. He was Chimpy, agent of chaos. A pawn in a game he couldn't possibly comprehend, a game that unfortunately involved air travel. At the opulent headquarters of the Mercer Corporation, the CEO was in a panic. An anonymous tip had come in. A chimp, a brainwashed chimp, is going to fly a plane into your building. The voice on the phone had crackled. The CEO slammed the phone down. "A chimp? Are you serious?" he yelled at his assistant. "Get me security, get me the Air Force, get me a really, really big net." But it was too late. The plan, as absurd and convoluted as it was already in motion. Chimpy, now fully under Osamonk's spell, was being led onto a private jet. His mind a blank slate ready to be filled with instructions for mayhem. On board the plane, Osamonk bin Chimpton decided to pass the time before takeoff. He pulled out a deck of exquisitely crafted cards. "To keep your mind sharp for the mission, we shall play a game," he declared, his voice dripping with evil confidence. "The ancient Egyptian game of Eye of Horus." Chimpy, despite his hypnotized state, felt a flicker of his old self. He loved games, almost as much as he loved ham. They began to play, the fate of the Mercer HQ hanging in the balance as cards were dealt on the tray table. The engines roared to life, and the plane began its ascent into the sky. The stakes were high. On the tray table, a laptop glowed with the spinning reels of Mercer's online slots. Osamonk, for all his villainous bluster, was hopeless at slots. He kept losing, his frustration mounting with every spin. Chimpy, on the other hand, was on fire. Every spin brought a shower of bananas and hams across the screen. It was as if his brain, wiped clean of all other thoughts, had become a supercomputer for timing the perfect spin on banana-themed slots. He kept winning, and winning, and winning big. With each jackpot, a little bit of the hypnotic fog lifted. The prize money, a ludicrously large pile of banana-shaped casino chips, was stacking up in front of him. "I've won again!" Chimpy screeched with glee, spinning the reels for another jackpot. "I'm rich!" The sheer, unadulterated joy of victory completely scrambled the hypnotic programming. What mission? What was he supposed to be doing again? Something about flying? Somewhere? He looked over at a fuming Osamonk. Then he looked at his pile of winnings. Then he looked out of the cockpit window. He was supposed to crash into something. That tall, shiny building, wasn't it? Mercer HQ. But wait, the building next to it? That drab beige block. That was the Just Foundation. That's where his mate Tim worked. He could pop in and show Tim his winnings. What a brilliant idea. With a sudden, decisive yank on the controls, Chimpy veered the plane away from its intended target. Osamunk screamed, "No, you fool, the other one, the shiny one!" But it was too late. The plane careened directly into the top floors of the Just Foundation, embedding itself in the accounts department with a deafening crunch. In the chaos, Tim grabbed Chimpy, and the two of them escaped down a fire escape, covered in dust and shredded invoices. Osamunk, tangled in his own hubris and seatbelt, went down with the plane. A fitting end for a chimp who couldn't play his cards right. Back at home, Chimpy proudly stacked his winnings on the coffee table. Tim, looking exhausted, shook his head. "Right," he said. "First thing tomorrow, I am telling my boss we are never, ever activating the 9/11 protocol again. It's just not worth the paperwork." And so our story ends. A lesson learned, I suppose. Or not, who knows. This is Chris, Topher Columbus, Charles, Darwin, whatever. This is CCC News, signing off. Chimpy, ignoring him, flicked on the telly. On the screen, a monkey newsreader, Phil McMonkey, was reporting. Incredible scenes today as a chimp, described by onlookers as goofy, foiled a terrorist plot by being exceptionally good at cards. Chimpy smiled. He was a hero. And he still had that ham video to finish.